Good Thursday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We will be joined a little bit later in the show by Anthony Castrovince. He is MLB's national baseball reporter. We'll talk some Indians baseball. We'll also relive a historic opening day here in Cleveland 46 years ago. But we begin talking Browns football. Whenever we talk Browns football, we like to talk football with Ellis Williams, the Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as here in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Ellis, we're going to take a look at some mock drafts. DraftWire has the Browns selecting Jason Owa in the 26th pick, edge rusher from Penn State. Again, that's one of those guys that seems to be in that mix. What do you think about him and the likelihood that he's still there at 26?
Yeah, Jason's an interesting prospect right now in terms of we have these pro days really taking off all over the place, and he's a guy that tested freakishly, running 4.4, 4.3 speed at that position. It's something you don't see often there, but when you turn on the tape and look at his production, you don't see those sack numbers. He didn't have a sack last year. So you see the prospect, you see the potential, but then when you talk about how it applies to the game and what's happening on the field, it didn't happen a year ago. Now that's could be for a lot of reasons. It was a COVID season, really strange year in the Big Ten. You can chalk it up for a lot of stuff. When GMs and scouts in the pro departments look at these guys, they tend to give less rips about their production and their stats as much as they see traits and upside. So I can see why Jason is being tagged right around where the Browns are picking. It makes a lot of sense. It's a player who could come to Cleveland and not be asked to do a whole lot right away and could develop into possibly a premier pass rusher.
Well, you mentioned the pro days, and we did have a chance to listen in to Owa on his pro day. He was talking about the things he was working on to get better, to make that production show up on the field.
2020, it was like, it's weird because maybe the production wasn't there, but in terms of just skill-wise, I was way better this past year. So, it just helped me to understand what I have to really hone on. I was focused on just trying to have flashy moves, but now I can really hone in on speed to power, hone in on, timing the hands better, and hone in on, confronting the tackle instead of, trying to run around him. And, that's only going to make my game even better. So I'm really happy that, it was bittersweet that I had, 0 sacks, but I just know that it's going to be crazier once I really know what need to work on.
Jason Owa at his pro day in Penn State, and LSU alluded to it. He ran, I believe it was clocked a 4.39. So that's a defensive end with, we'd take that at the wide receiver position with that kind of speed.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's an interesting soundbite. I love the fact he's talking terminology, describing the ways he's improved and the technique that he's trying to refine. I'll say that when I watch him on tape, I notice a guy who takes some pretty wide angles trying to get to the quarterback because he's a better athlete, because he has the speed to get outside and win. But what I like to see out of the position are guys with more bend who can decrease the surface area between the tackle and themselves, and then use that speed and quickness that Awu has and get around that way, rather than taking these long angles and that arc, that defensive end arc you hear so much about. There's some other guys in this draft that I think cut down that arc in more impressive ways and get into the tackle sooner without getting caught up in grabbing cloth and caught up in the muck there. So again, an upside pick, but one that if the Browns make, I don't think you can expect a whole lot of year one production.
Yeah, without question. There's a lot of risk involved with drafting a guy that is strictly on potential. Well, another one of the mock drafts, and it's mock draft season. We'll have some fun with it. More than anything, these are guys just to listen out for and watch as they develop. So this one, Pro Football Network, their mock draft, they did a 4-rounder. They have the Browns taking Jalen Phillips from Miami, edge rusher. And again, we've talked about him and kind of a similar guy.
Yeah, Jalen Phillips is one who, when you turn the tape on, you don't find a lot of red flags. You see a lot of speed to power. You see really the exact player I just was describing in terms of cutting down that surface area and getting into a tackle in ways that make them uncomfortable. Starting outside, attacking their inside, and then you get back around them. And if you think, being the defensive or the offensive tackle, if you think facing Jadeveon Phillips, he's going to finesse you, all of a sudden he'll put his head down, which isn't the best technique, but for the sake of this conversation, putting his head down and bull rushing through you, and now you're on your back. And that's the last place any offensive lineman wants to be. The one thing on Jadeveon Phillips that is going to continue to be a question mark until the last people to find out about it, which will be the press and the public, is his medicals. He really retired from football because of concussions, and then came back after his stint at UCLA and arrived in Miami and had a really good season. Answering those questions as to why he left, his ability to get cleared and come back, why he thought it was safe for him to play, and what that means going forward are all serious question marks, because regardless of talent, the first thing that matters is medical. And I bet there are teams that, because of his concussion history and his early retirement and return, have just taken Jadeveon Phillips off their draft board. I wouldn't advise it, but I also don't have the information. So I must acknowledge it, but then I can't act as if I know. So all I do know is what he does on the field. And to me, I think he's probably a top 2 prospect at this position, definitely top 3, but it's the medicals that we don't have the answer for yet.
And again, anytime you're drafting late in the first round, there's going to be some questions. That's why guys are being drafted 26th instead of 6th or 7th. Here's an interesting one. Second round, they have Baron Browning, linebacker from Ohio State, mocked to the Browns. And that, you're nodding your head. I think that's a guy you could see the Browns being interested in.
100%. Really see why a team like the Browns would be targeting Browning. The thing about him is he might be climbing a little bit as the discussion unfolds as to who is the number 3 linebacker in this class. And there's some names we probably will get to. And that's exactly where he pegs. Like, he's not better than Micah Parsons. There's some talk that the Notre Dame kid is more of a safety than a linebacker. And then we're in the Browning area, which could mean he's a first-round pick. Now, do the Browns have to grab him at 26 because he's not there at 59? That might become something that is out of Andrew Berry's control, and they don't have a chance there, or they trade up for him. Point being, it's a guy that, as I study him, as I read about him, I'm seeing a lot of physical traits that stand out. 6'3", 240, can cover in space. You trust him in his zone drops. He can play on the edge. He can play in the middle. Ohio State played him really everywhere. He might be better on the edge to let his athleticism shine, but he also has the ability to play sideline to sideline, which is something you can't say about a few other linebackers in this class. And when it comes to the physical traits, he's just got a body that not a lot of guys at this position have either.
Last one we'll do with this one, third round, they have Tylan Wallace, wide receiver, Oklahoma State. I know that's a guy you like.
Yeah, I really like Tylan Wallace. He's a guy who you trust to go up and win a football. The 50-50 ball is a concept that smart offensive minds try to drift away from, but at the end of the day, you got to go up and make a play. And Tylan Wallace is a guy who repeatedly did that at Oklahoma State. I wonder if he has the separation ability and the consistency to get open on the outside, but that's not something he'd be expected to do in Cleveland and really anywhere he goes in day one. He'd be a rotation guy, special teams guy, and then can learn from there. And as a 3rd or 4th round pick, he would make a lot of sense.
Ellis Williams and I are going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk some potential day 1 trades in the draft. NFL.com has some that they think could happen. Ellis and I will dive into that. We'll also take a look at some underrated prospects nationally that are being linked potentially to the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Well, hello everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get texts sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue to talk football, Browns football, and the NFL draft with Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the page of the Plain Dealer. Ellis, NFL.com put together some potential day one draft day trades. And one of the ones they have that's intriguing, they have the Browns trading up 8 spots, giving up a 3rd rounder and a 6th rounder to the Dolphins, moving up to 18. Now, they project to go up and get either Jamin Davis or Jadeveon Clowney, which I think is possible, but I think it's even more likely if somebody like J.C. Horn, a cornerback, or Greg Newsome, a cornerback like that, slips. I could definitely see the Browns flipping a couple of those picks to go up and get a guy they really like. Just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that if the Browns trade up, it would be for cornerback. I think there's a clear drop-off right after the 2 guys you named, J.C. Horn, Greg Newsome. Asante Samuel Jr. would probably be the full 5th corner in that grouping, and there's a drop-off there just based on measurables, traits, and whatnot. I don't see the Browns trading up for linebacker or edge rusher, and it's for this reason. First, with linebacker, it's a intriguing class, one that is deep but not elite. And when you don't have a shot at a guy like Michael Parsons or JKO, the Notre Dame kid that we talked about in the first segment, who I think is more of a safety than linebacker anyway, now you're talking about guys that have things you like, but enough concerns that they're going to drop anyway, where at 26, if you're looking at Jamin Davis or Zaven Collins, you're probably comfortable with either, even though they are slightly different players. When it terms of edge rusher, there's not a edge rusher in this class that you would say is freakish or game-changing. They are all guys that will have a potential to be longtime pros and add some stability to your line, which isn't something you usually trade up for. So we tend to be on the same page here, Dave. I don't think they trade up for either linebacker or edge rusher, but I could see them getting antsy and wanting to grab one of those top 4 corners.
The other thing that I think is I think Zaven Collins is intriguing just because I think they kind of view him as one of those guys that you can move around. You know, you could use him as the lone linebacker that you play if you're playing one linebacker, or if you want, he's shown he can get after the passer, and he's still kind of learning, you know, that whole linebacker, defensive end type position.
Yeah, Zaven Collins is a guy that I really can't find a knock on yet. when you look at him, he projects to me like a Jamie Collins or a Kyle Van Noy, those bigger type of disrupting potential edge rushing linebackers, but don't necessarily need to be stuck in a 3-4 defense to do so. Watching his tape, I would like to see him use his hands better when he does get engaged with tackles and pulling guards. Sometimes when he gets caught, the fight's over, and for a player of his size, that just shouldn't be the case. But that seems like a quite a nitpick and something that can be coached. You know, hand fighting, technique, refining those things are coachable. 6'4", 260 and moving like he's 230 isn't. So again, Jadeveon Clowney is a guy I can't find a lot of holes in, and I'm wondering if when we look back on this draft, regardless of where he lands, it's going to be a guy like, yeah, he probably should have been picked 10 spots higher.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. You mentioned that. His coach, Philip Montgomery, was on this show just saying he can learn how to play better with his hands because he was a free safety and a cornerback before he went to linebacker in college. So that's his coach agrees with you. Let's take a look at some underrated prospects from Bleacher Report. Now, this is a guy I think you and I have talked about, Peyton Turner from Houston. What do you see from that? The edge rusher. What do you like about him? What are some of the questions maybe that you have with Turner?
Look, when we get to a point with edge rusher where you're later in the draft, it becomes a coaching thing. It becomes guys that you see one or two things they really like and that they can expand on it. In terms of Peyton Turner, you really like the sheer size he brings. We've talked about what edge rushing in a 4-3 means. You need to be a traditional end and be able to set an edge, which is going back to free agency, why an edge rusher like Hassan Reddick, I didn't think made any sense in Cleveland. You know, that's 6 feet, 210 on your best day. And Turner, we're talking 6'5", 270, 280, 265, whatever it may be. He's someone that you trust in a edge setting way, traditional 4-3 defensive end. So he fits the prototype there, and then you build on top of that as a coaching staff. That's really what you're looking at in terms of anything outside of the top 100.
Now, they also have a guy that played with J.C. Horn at South Carolina listed as back in that secondary, listed as somebody that's underrated. It's Israel Mukuamu, and say that fast a couple times. When you look at him, what do you see, and what are some of the things that jump out about him?
That's the thing with draft time, right? A lot of these names get tricky, and you do your best through them. I hear you on that. Unless they're drafted to the Browns, I got to say their name every day. The practice will come later. He's another guy who you like what you see on tape, someone who's comfortable getting into a hip pocket. He surprised me at times with his physicality. A lot of times in college, you see a lot of zone, a lot of off coverage, allowing everything to develop in front of them, and then they can break on the football. I saw enough of a mixed bag there where it gives you some confidence. But again, a lot of this stuff, when you plug them into NFL rosters, you just don't know till they're there and they're in training camp and lining up one-on-one against Odell Beckham Jr. or Jarvis Landry. What you like about this kid is that he's versatile. He has reps both at corner and safety. It tends to be what the Browns are looking for, someone that, all right, fine, if he's not an outside guy, let's bring him in. If he's not an in guy, maybe he plays safety. We're talking developmental stuff here, but the type of traits that the Browns are clearly looking for when it comes to a versatile secondary.
Last guy we'll talk about, Jalen Darden, wide receiver from North Texas.
Yeah, this is another guy who, when you look at his tape, you like the explosiveness. You see a guy who knew how to make plays, really was reliant on making those plays. And when you think of a football player swinging a game, it's in terms of explosiveness and touchdown scoring. This guy was a touchdown machine, a reception machine. You're cool with his speed. I think he's a guy that looks a little faster on tape than he performed at his pro day. But again, when we're talking about a program like North Texas, you just worry about the level of comp, especially out there at receiver. Was he facing pro corners and safeties? The answer is no. Doesn't mean he can at the next level, but that's why these are underrated prospects. We just don't know enough yet, especially in a reduced 2020 season.
Ellis Williams and I are going to take a quick time out on the other side of break. Ellis has simulated some draft projections and possibilities for the Browns at edge rusher, as well as wide receiver. We'll take a listen as to who the Browns end up with in a couple of the rounds. Sports4CLE will be back talking more Browns draft. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line, a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State tech subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter. Ellis, you did some draft simulations. Take us through it. Let's start with edge rushers.
Yeah, with what I'm learning at edge rusher is that it's a class that is going to be quite turbulent. When you do these mocks and you simulate them, sometimes you see Kwity Paye or Jalen Phillips be really the only two edge rushers that go before the Browns pick at 26. At times, it's only Jalen Phillips or it's only Paye. And that, to me, doesn't match up with some stuff I'm seeing from mocks, whether it's Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, the guys that call around to these teams and figure out where players are going. They still have, you know, Greg Rousseau, who I wrote about, going in the top 20. So it's a market that I don't think anyone has a good grasp on right now, and that one that will be influenced probably come draft day. Like as soon as 2 go before 20, like, all right, we're looking at edge rushers flying off this board. If we don't see 1 go before 20 or only 1 go before 20, it's going to be a quiet day 1 for these guys, but then could build in day 2 because there is intriguing depth. But as I said at the top, there's just no sure home runs at edge rusher, and for it being such a premium position and day 1 being such premium picks, I think teams are a bit hesitant right now just with so much information being unknown. Like, let's just take the Miami guys, for example, that we talked about. Jalen Phillips already, his medicals are a concern. Greg Rousseau, a guy who has been pegged anywhere between top 10, top 20 to out of the first round altogether after his lackish pro day, didn't play in 2020. Again, these are huge question marks for day 1 capital at such a premium position.
You know, one of the guys that you had going in the first round, now you had Rousseau going to the Browns in the second round. You had Azeez Ojulari going to the Browns in the first round. That's a younger guy. What do you see with him? And take us through some of the things that are attractive about him and some things that are concerns.
Ojulari is a guy I'm really learning to appreciate what he brings as an edge rusher. At first, I wrote him off because I thought he was a little bit too small. But then when you watch him on tape, that 240, 6'2" frame looks like it has a lot more mass than either actually shows on the scale or the room to put it on more an upper body, because his base seems so firm to me. And I saw that both in an edge setting way and the way he can defend the run and the way he's able to get into defensive tackles. And then when he does get into the tackle, you see really refined, detailed pass rushing moves, or well, I should say move. It's a 3-step move. It's a pin, punch, rip type of thing where he hits you early and then you try to make contact with him and then he knocks your hand off you and then he'll rip through you. So he's winning at the point of attack with a really refined move, which tells me that he can beat you on the outside, that he's capable of learning more moves, and that he also is a fine edge defender. I think he has a Yannick Ngakoue type comp here, who has been tied to the Browns numerous times over this past year, who now is in Oakland, of course, or excuse me, the Las Vegas Raiders. But he's a player that I think if the Browns have an opportunity to grab him, could very well be the best pure pass rusher in this class. And then I think he does enough in the run game to build off that. And going to a team where he could be the number 2, even number 3 edge rusher, I think would be perfect for him.
What about let's talk about a guy that you have going in the 3rd round of the Browns. That would be Carlos Basham. That's a guy from Wake Forest too. Again, he's one of those guys. You see him some in the 1st round. You see him some in the 3rd round if you pay attention to those kind of things.
Yeah, so like Ojulari is a guy who you would just put on the outside and expect him to win. When it comes to Basham, what you see from him is a player capable of playing in a 3-tech. He can play some 5 and he can play out in a wide 9. You really can play him anywhere on one side of the center. And that's because of his just sheer size. At 280, he reminds me of a Malik Jackson, a guy who really made his name winning inside versus smaller guards, but then could move outside when need be and just use that base and that firmness to his game to overpower offensive tackles. Again, it's this volatile edge rushing market. I have no clue where he is going to go. If he is a late day 1, early 2nd round guy, it would make sense. If he all of a sudden starts falling, I see that too. It is, I think edge rusher along with, I think it's edge rusher. I was going to say receiver, but we know for the most part how these top guys at receiver are going to fall. The depth is what intrigues me. At edge rusher, I don't even know how the top guys are going to fall, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah, you mentioned receiver. Let's go there. You did the same simulations for the Browns, and 1st round you had Bateman, a guy I know you like. Tell me about Rashard Bateman.
Yeah, so the receiver mock simulation was really interesting because you learn quite quickly that if the Browns want a difference maker, a bona fide stud, someone that can come in and play day 1 for them, that list shrinks quickly by the time they get to 26. Bateman's a guy who probably won't even be there at 26. If he is, I think you have to grab him right away. 6'1", 210, actually weighed in at 190 at his pro day. That's what I love about draft season. That's a 30-pound discrepancy between what he's listed at and what he actually weighed in at. But I have no problem listing him at 210 because that's how he plays. He is a big-time playmaker in the fact that he knows how to use his body to his advantage. He's comfortable at the 2nd level of his routes, regardless of where the DB is positioned to go win a football. He plays bigger than his 6'1" listing, and his catch radius is the type of advantageous attribute that I would love for Lamar Jackson to have in Baltimore, but he would do wonders in Cleveland because of Baker Mayfield's accuracy. And if one ball got away from Baker in a way, a guy like Bateman could bring it in. But I'm worried the Browns don't have a chance to grab him because he'll be gone by pick 20 or something like that to a team like Tennessee.
Let's talk a little bit about Elijah Moore. It's a guy you had mocked in the 2nd round there, and that's an Ole Miss guy with a lot of speed.
Yeah, Elijah Moore is another one that I'm worried won't be there by the time the Browns can pick him at 59, but I see him as a early round 2 talent. Kadarius Toney is another one who I see going in the 1st round. Terrence Marshall of LSU is another guy that probably goes in round 1. But then you look at Elijah Moore, and he comes from a pedigree of Ole Miss receivers that have a great track record very early in this league with DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown in Tennessee and Seattle, respectively. Elijah Moore is ready to fall in line despite not having that similar size. Elijah Moore is a 5'9", 180 style receiver, but he's got the route running chops of a Antonio Brown or Stephon Diggs, that type of explosiveness and playmaking too, running 4.39 speed. He's a player I really like, but again, if he's not there at 59, it's going to be because he went early in round 2 because the team fell in love with all those traits I just described.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter, and I going to take a timeout. We'll be right back. We'll talk Andrew Billings, Jadeveon Clowney. We switch our attention to defensive line for the Cleveland Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get texts sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week, and it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. Let's welcome back in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter. Ellis, you mentioned the volatility of the market for edge rushers in the draft. Do you think that's affecting Jadeveon Clowney's decision to sign with somebody? He's kind of waiting to see if somebody misses out on an edge rusher that needs one, or do you think he's just waiting and, the Browns are the only team that's been tied to him meeting with?
Yeah, I just don't think there's a real rush. Let the market fall where it does. Clowney's going to end up on a football team eventually, and we're still months away from training camp. There's no reason to commit somewhere. Perhaps Clowney gains some leverage when things don't break the Browns' way, or they bring in a guy and they can keep that contract probably at $8-9 million, because I'm sure Clowney wants more. It is completely related to the draft. I'm confident of that. And as I say that, he probably will sign in the next few hours, right?
Let's talk about another guy, defensive lineman. You look at Andrew Billings. That's a guy the Browns were excited to get last year. He opted out because of COVID concerns. What about Billings? What do they have with Billings, and how does he fit with what they want to do?
I'm excited about Billings. I did a deep dive on him, a film breakdown back when he signed. Oh, gosh, it feels like, over a year ago now, right? What I remember from it is a guy who's going to influence the run game. He gets large, he gets big in there, can play nose in a 3-4. Of course, he won't be asked to do that, so he'll be a 3 technique guy, someone they can plug in against the Baltimore Ravens and say, you're not coming off the field on 1st and 2nd down, muck this up, be dirty, be nasty inside, and let's stop this Ravens rushing attack, and we'll let our athletes on the perimeter worry about Lamar Jackson. He's also a guy who can get after the quarterback through internal pressure. So I think, though I don't project him as a 3-down player, he's capable of doing those things, and really just a guy who we got to see how, what his body looks like after a year away from football. But assuming that's all in check, he's going to be a key rotational player for this Browns defensive line.
Ellis Williams, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Be sure you read Ellis Williams, pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as here on cleveland.com. Great stuff. Thanks, Ellis. Appreciate the time. Time for us to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we shift our attention to baseball. Anthony Castrovince, MLB.com's national writer, will join us. We'll talk some Indians pitching straight ahead. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State tech subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to baseball and the Indians. Indians with the night off. They will start a 3-game series over at Progressive Field tomorrow night against the Detroit Tigers. Let's welcome in Anthony Castrovince, national writer for baseball for MLB.com. Anthony, appreciate the time. I know you're a Northeast Ohio native. You kind of still follow the Indians. You did a piece for MLB ranking the top rotations in baseball. Indians one of the top 10, and they're very young. What did you like about this rotation, and what moves them into the middle of the pack? What could potentially even move them up a little bit more?
Yeah, well, obviously, they fell in standing a bit with the Francisco Lindor trade, which doubles as the Carlos Carrasco trade. But of course, Carrasco now hurt with the Mets with the hamstring injury. But that took a great amount of experience out of the rotation. But the upside potential is still obviously huge here. And when you have an anchor the likes of Shane Bieber, that's 20% of your rotation right there. So that's a great start. We've seen Zach Plesac has been fantastic in his limited big league career to date. Aaron Savali has really shown great potential, and I think has made some mechanical adjustments that could help him maintain his command. over the course of starts. And so I think he has a lot of upside still from what we've seen at the big league level to date. And then the back end it's still a mystery at this point, but Logan Allen was one of the stars of spring training camp in the Cactus League, and he showed pretty well in his home opener start the other day against the Royals. And then we'll see. Tristan McKenzie and Cal Quantrill will kind of fill that back spot, that last spot in the early going here. But I don't think they have the depth they did in recent years in terms of when injury or emergency intervenes to call up on some kid from AAA and have him be so polished and ready the way we saw with Plesac and Savali and Bieber in recent years. I don't know that necessarily exists in their system currently, but in terms of what they have present day at the big league level, there's a lot to like.
We mentioned Logan Allen briefly. That's a guy left-handed, first left-hander they've had in the rotation in a few years, and a guy that lost 35 pounds in the offseason, really got after it because he, wanted to be part of that rotation.
Yeah, apparently the poundage was not giving him velocity, because he loses weight and gains velo, which is a good combination. So he came into camp, he looked ready to go. He was hitting 96 on the gun routinely, and his breaking ball looked fantastic as well. As I said, he was one of the bright spots in any camp this spring.
When you look at the way the Indians develop pitching, is that a surprise? Is that something that they've kind of become known around baseball for? Is you mentioned young guys just come up and they seem like they're ready to pitch.
Yeah, and it's not just young guys coming up, it's also guys who come into the system. A guy like Logan Allen who, buys into their pitching development plan, and they put things in front of them and they give them ideas for adjustments they can make. And but you're right. We've seen they really targeted strike throwers from the collegiate ranks. That was Shane Bieber. He threw strikes in college. He didn't throw hard, but he threw strikes. And they basically go with the mindset of, if we have a guy who can get it over the plate, we can kind of take it from there. We can make him better. And they've shown that time and again. So it is definitely something they've, gained a reputation in the industry. And guys are, if you're a guy like Logan Allen or Cal Quantrill, who, former top 100 prospects in the game, who haven't quite panned out to this point at the big league level, they're excited to come over here and see what ideas Cleveland has for them and what potential they can untap. So, it's a great strength, and it's a necessary strength, to do what they've done in recent years and to be as competitive as they have, despite, the budget limitations. They've been able to do that because of their pitching pedigree.
You also ranked the bullpens, and you ranked the Indians honorable mention, and I imagine, again, it's because of an abundance of youth in the bullpen, especially towards that back end.
Yeah, and that can go any number of ways, and bullpens in general can go any number of ways. And that column ranking the top 10 bullpens, we run it just prior to opening day, and then it's out of date a week into the season, right? Because things happen. And already, I had the A's at the bottom spot there, and then they lose Trevor Rosenthal. Looks like he's going to have surgery here. So it changes in a hurry in the bullpens. And guys who were good last year are no good this year, and guys who were terrible last year are good all of a sudden. So it doesn't take much to change your ranking there. But I put Cleveland on there as just one to watch, because when you have such raw stuff as they do in James Karinchak and Emmanuel Clase in high leverage roles, that could really play up, and we'll have to see. It's going to take time to see how that develops. We saw Karinchak in a large, semi-large sample last year, and he got my third place vote in the Rookie of the Year last year. He still has, command issues to iron out. He very much is the embodiment of that wild thing, Ricky Vaughn, that we all grew up with here in Cleveland. It's perfect that he wears that number because he really fits that formula. But it's really exciting, his stuff, his raw stuff, his tenacity, and Class A. It might even be a step beyond, just in terms of the movement on that cutter is just something you don't see every day. So, if nothing else, the stuff, watching it zig and zag is fun to watch, and we'll see what the actual results are over time.
When you look at those two, do you figure one of those becomes a closer? And if you were guessing, and again, who knows? As you mentioned, who knows how the relievers are going to play out? Yeah. Do you think one of those guys assumes the closer role? Which one do you think would be the one, or do you just simply go with who's hot?
Yeah, at this moment, they're going more of a committee approach, and you see teams do this all the time, but ultimately you also see them kind of revert to that old mentality of having a closer. And, there's an argument for just using your best reliever in the biggest spots. It becomes difficult to manage that over the course of a season. You could wear a guy out pretty quickly doing that. And players just generally like to have a role. So oftentimes, you do see someone kind of start to navigate towards that closer role. I couldn't even predict who that would be. I mean, Karinchak, again, personality-wise, there's your closer. Results-wise, I don't know. I mean, Class A could certainly do it. He has the stuff to do it. I haven't seen enough of him to really have a gauge of that. But so for now, I'd probably lean towards Karinchak because, frankly, he's already done it.
When you look at the upside, you think there's a ton of upside just because those are two guys? And the flip side of it is the ceiling's pretty high, but the floor might be pretty low as well. I would imagine there's going to be bumps along the way because they are so young.
Well, they have to avoid traffic, and as I said, staying out of trouble with the walks for Karinchak in particular. In Class A, we're still getting to know him, but and they have other arms in their system that they like who could impact things. And we see that all the time in the game too. Someone kind of comes from out of nowhere and is all of a sudden your 7th inning guy, your 8th inning guy. That could happen here. We haven't even mentioned Nick Whitgren, who's a guy who they've shown a lot of, Francona has shown a lot of trust in him in recent years. And he's in that mix as well for the 9th inning responsibilities. But you're right. I mean, wild variations with bullpens. I mean, the Philadelphia Phillies last year had a historically bad bullpen. They didn't address it in terms of the top names in the free agent market, but they did address it. They made a bunch of changes. And right now, very early on, they have one of the better bullpens in baseball. So I'm not saying that necessarily sticks, but it can change overnight.
Anthony Castrovince, MLB's national baseball reporter. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk some of the young positional players for the Indians. We'll also talk a little bit about that Francisco Lindor trade. Sports4CLE will be right back talking baseball with Anthony Castrovince. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Well, hello everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get texts sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
Sports for CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue to talk baseball. Anthony Castrovince of MLB.com, the national baseball reporter, will join us in just a minute. But first, we got to listen. We have some voicemail of truth and reason, and we have some passionate baseball fans in Cleveland. Take a listen.
Hi, this is John. I live in Toledo area. I am a longtime Cleveland sports fan, and I would like to know why Major League Baseball is getting involved in the moving of the All-Star game. I believe it's for illegitimate reasons. I will be boycotting watching the game. Thank you.
The Indians, they're terrible. The ownership, they got rid of all the players, but Jose Ramirez, most likely he'll be gone in mid-season. This is really a shame in a way. Terry had 8 really good years, 5 in the playoffs, won the World Series, but this is really a shame. And these trades, especially for Frankie, what a terrible thing. And Tyler Naquin's hitting it pretty well. We don't have anyone in the outfield like Tyler Naquin. Why isn't he playing for us?
All right, the voicemail of truth and reason. First of all, I get fans' frustration with the trade of Francisco Lindor. Nobody wants to see guys developed here in Cleveland and let go when it comes to that second contract where free agency is staring at them. But the simple fact of the matter is $34 million for one player, a position player, in a market like Cleveland. It's not a good business decision. You can't do that with a position player. It hasn't worked in any place other than LA or New York where you've paid somebody that much money. So again, I get it, but the problem is baseball is broke. And Indians had the lowest payroll, and that it's a fact, the lowest payroll in baseball. But the Dodgers have a payroll that is 5 times the Indians' payroll. And you shouldn't have that. You should have a ceiling, you should have a cap, and you should have a floor. And it shouldn't be 5 times 5 times as much money to put a roster together. Let's bring Anthony Castrovince back in. And Anthony, again, you're a Clevelander. You follow the Indians. You understand fans' frustration. I can't see a way that spending $34 million, even on a player as good as Francisco Lindor, a position player, is a good idea for a team in a market like Cleveland.
No, the only way you retain ties to a player of the caliber of Francisco Lindor is to sign him very early in his career. We've seen teams sign guys before they even set foot in the big leagues, prior to their first game even. And they tried after 2016. They tried a 9-figure deal at that point, and he was well within his right to turn it down, and he was in a good position to turn it down via his signing bonus from the draft and his money from New Balance as the face of New Balance baseball. He was already a star after the Indians playoff run in 2016. So he turned it down at that point and bet on himself, and he wanted to seek out one of the top 3 or 4 contracts in MLB. And what did he get? One of the top contracts in MLB. And he gets it at age 27. That's a really risky deal. It's risky for the Mets, let alone for a team of a market size like this. Again, I understand the fan frustration. My frustration is that they didn't trade him sooner, to be honest with you, because they knew that they had no chance of locking him up beyond 2021. So I really still to this day don't understand why they would take him into last season, into 2020. And I'm talking about before the pandemic. The pandemic made that even more dramatically work against them because then their hands were tied in terms of what they could do around the league in terms of moving that amount of money. Teams just weren't willing to take on his arbitration cost and give up top tier talent on top of that. So they put themselves into a corner. Not that they knew the pandemic was going to break out, but they did put themselves into a corner going into 2020, just knowing the injury risk and all that. I just think that was the time to make a deal and to get a better deal than what they ended up getting. But in terms of signing Lindor to a long-term deal, as you said, Dave, all I can say is look at the history. It's not pretty. I mean, look at Nolan Arenado and the Rockies. That's the most recent one. These deals do not end well for the signing team. They just don't. And he's a 27-year-old shortstop. It's a 10-year deal. Do the math. And it's not that Cleveland couldn't afford Lindor. It's about building a team around him. I would also encourage people to just look at the history of teams who invest more than 20% of their player payroll into a single player. We haven't had a World Series winner in a very long time that has done that. And for Cleveland to do that, to pay Lindor what he was worth and to surround him would have been a $150 million payroll at minimum every year. It's something that you can't imagine them maintaining a top 10 to 15 payroll as a matter of routine, just given all the market dynamics. So, the trade is defensible. It's just, I think the timing was off.
All right, let's move on to something a little more pleasant. Some of the young position guys that you think could develop and could be a factor. Obviously, Indians need some offense. The pitching is young, talented, some question marks with offense. Who are some names to listen out for? You know Ramirez is going to be good. You know Hernandez is a player. You know Rosario is going to hit. Who are some guys that could come up and help out offensively, either that are here or that could be here?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember Ahmed Rosario, who they got in the Lindor trade. He's still a young player, age 25 season, and that's a guy who was one of the top prospects in the game not long ago. He's kind of a man out of place right now. He lost his starting shortstop job to Andres Jimenez with the Mets, and then what happens? They both get traded to Cleveland, and he loses his job again. So difficult scenario there for him. He's trying to learn the outfield, but yeah, there's still a lot of potential there. He's super athletic and, could be a good quality major league hitter, but I'll be curious to see how that works out. But honestly, the guy I'm maybe most excited about and most curious about and want to see on a regular basis is Daniel Johnson, who's not even with the big league club right now. This guy in the last I know it's spring training, but in the last 2 spring training camps, when he's been on the field, he has quite often looked like the best player on the field. And I'm not saying that that's what he will be, when he gets a prolonged look at the big league level. And he had a little bit of big league time last year. But I do think there's a lot of talent there. Defensive versatility in the outfield. He can play anywhere in the outfield. He could play center field, and Lord knows they need a center fielder. Just athletic, speed, bat speed, and his arm. His arm is his best tool in the outfield. So I would really like to get a prolonged look at him. And I really feel like over the course of this 2021 season, we will. I know he's not up right now, but that's a guy I'm definitely circling, just given their need for just stability in the outfield.
Anthony Castrovince, MLB national baseball writer. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Anthony, thanks very much. Before we go tonight, we're going to take a look back 41 years. The home opener, April 8th, 1975. Virgil Dominic takes us through Frank Robinson's debut as the first African-American manager for the Cleveland Indians in this week's Tribe Time Capsule.
Gerald Ford enters his final year as President of the United States. Former Teamsters President Jimmy Hoffa is reported missing, and Jack Nicholson is a hit at the box office in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The year is 1975, and our Indians are making baseball history. On April 8th, opening day at Municipal Stadium, Frank Robinson debuts as a player-manager of the Indians. He becomes the first African-American manager in Major League history. Robinson, the manager, decides that Robinson, the player, gives the Indians the best chance of winning, so he puts himself in the opening day lineup.
A Hollywood scriptwriter wouldn't try to put something like this into a movie. And the funniest thing about it, the ironic thing about it, is that before the game, Phil Segui said to Frank, "Hey, one last thought, Skip. Why don't you hit a home run on your first time at bat?"
Robinson takes the advice to heart. In his very first at-bat against the New York Yankees' Doc Medich, Robinson, the player, makes Robinson, the manager, look like a genius.
They had television cameras, they had still cameras, and he literally had to wade through all the cameras to get the home plate, and then he hits the home run off Doc Medich. I mean, you think about a pressure situation and somebody rising to the occasion. That was one of the more dramatic moments.
And when he hit that home run, it was like the skies had opened up and everything was perfect. And though I often didn't in times before that I knew that at that point there was a God up in heaven.
Robinson's homer remains one of the most memorable moments from the Indians' days at Municipal Stadium.
Frank Robinson with the home opener win as the first African-American manager in the American League. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Sports 4 CLE. Want to remind you, tomorrow, Friday, guests will be Doug Lesmerises, Nikki Ewell from the NFL, as well as Tim Bielek, with some draft preview for the NFL as well. We'll see you again. Remember, Sports for CLE right here, 4 o'clock tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.